So the major work has begun in my home theater. And I'm basically working on multiple projects at the same time. Essentially, it's all the same project. I'm, just redoing my home theater, the aesthetics and everything like that. But I did want to give you an update on what has transpired since the last video, the last update. So a lot's happened. I started work on the Fabricamate. So started on that. I'm probably about maybe 40 or 50% done as far as the track, which we'll talk about. I have got one of the speaker mounts mounted for the Krix speakers, the OW50s. And then I got some different baseboards that I started work on. So let me just tell you about what I've done so far. So let's talk about Fabricamate. So here is the Fabricamate track system. And this stuff is pretty cool. So if you don't know what Fabricamate is, they sell this track system and some other stuff. But they sell this track system that you can mount onto your wall, and you put some acoustic material, foam or whatever. They sell their own foam. It's pretty expensive. This stuff is pretty expensive. So I did pay for this with my own money. And I'm doing the front half of the room right now. But this is the Fabricamate track system. So you'll mount this on the wall, and I'll show you, but you mount this on the wall. You get this right. So you mount it on the wall like that. You can nail it in, you can use staples, and then your acoustic material sits on here. This is the 1 inch. And then your fabric will go over it, and it's got this little groove here that you'll push the fabric in with their tools that they sell. But yeah, this stuff is pretty cool. So I want to talk a little bit about this because the install process has been very difficult and interesting, and I think the reason why is because of some of the videos that I've watched. So Fabricamate does have a YouTube channel. They have plenty of videos on there, helpful videos, very helpful videos that I watched many of before I started installing this stuff. However, some of their videos are not very useful as far as cutting. So I use a miter saw. You can cut this with a miter saw. You can cut this with a tool, hand tool that I got. The one that I have just absolutely sucks. I just stopped using it. Does not work the way that I thought it was going to work. And then you can also use like a little miter box. Like if you have the little ones, I have one. I've used it a couple times on this just for, really quick after I shut down or turned off my miter saw. But in their YouTube videos, they use a miter saw. They use a couple different tools. They use a miter saw. The issue I have with their video is the way that they tell you to cut it. Now, there's multiple ways to cut this. The way that they tell you to cut it is you basically cut it like this, and you can cut it at a 45-degree angle, but then they tell you to flip it over and then cut the 45-degree angle. Instead of moving your miter saw from 145 angle to the other 45 angle, it saves maybe, I don't know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The reason why they did it like that is so you don't have to keep moving back and forth. The problem that I have with that is, and I tried that, when you cut it, when it's like this, because this is how they have it in the video, when you cut it like this, I would say 97%, 95% of the time, this stuff cracks. And it's every time. It cracks, it chips, and at first I couldn't figure out what is going on because in the video, theirs does not do that. So I was driving myself crazy trying to figure out why this stuff kept cracking. And then I said, all right, well, let me just go at first I was using the miter saw and I was sliding forward, sliding it back, crack. So then I made the miter saw stationary and just cut straight down, crack. I was getting super irritated. So then I said, all right, let me just go really, really, really slow. If I went super, like, unnecessarily slow, moving the miter saw down, 50% of the time I could cut it without it cracking. The other 50% of the time is right when it gets right at the bottom, it cracks. So I was like, man, I gotta be doing something wrong. And then I realized that's just a bad way of cutting it, at least for me. So what I do is I cut my angle side first to where it's flat, No issues cracking at all. I cut the angle side first, and then I measure from the angle side to my straight edge if it's straight, and I have zero issues cutting it like that. So I'm not sure why they have you cutting it that way. Again, their video doesn't show that it cracks, but the way that they show in their videos to cut it, I would recommend not doing that. I don't know if my miter saw is too powerful. I mean, I feel like they're pretty much all kind of the same. And I have it's a 10-inch Ryobi. So that was extremely frustrating. I went through probably 2 of these. I mean, I was still able to use most of it, but I went through 2 of these where I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna cut anymore until I figure out how to cut this stuff, because I don't wanna go through all of my, waste all of my track system. So I finally figured it out, and so yeah, got past that part. Once you get it down, cutting, it's actually pretty simple. You cut it, and then you get your measurements, you cut it, and then the way that I've been mounting it is I've been pre-drilling holes all the way down, about 6 inches apart. I think they say in the video to do it about 6 inches apart. Pre-drill the holes, and then when I put it on the wall, make sure that it's level, make sure that it's straight, and I screw a screw in at the middle, at the top, at the bottom, and then I go through with the other screws, and then I go back and staple it with my staple gun. So here's my staple gun that I use, Ryobi. It's battery powered. Make sure that, screws, staple gun, you won't have any issues with this stuff moving. Now, there has been a few times where I did mess up and I had to remove the track system, and removing the staples is an absolute pain. Thankfully, I do have a staple remover, but even then, it's a pain. So make sure before if you're gonna use staples, screw it in first, because screws are pretty easy. You can just take a electric screwdriver and unscrew them. Make sure that you have this in place and that it's cut right before you start stapling, because once you start stapling, it's a pain to get that stuff out. But it's a learning experience and it's fun. So that's the track system. I don't know if you can see behind me, I have one square fully mounted. I've got some across the wall that I haven't finished yet because I need to do some other stuff first before I actually close them up. But I have a track system here underneath my screen. I need to do the other side. In the middle is where my closet was, so I've got something else there that I'll show you guys at a different time. But yeah, the track system, I'm really happy with it so far. I can't wait. It's pretty easy. Like I said, the most time-consuming part is probably the measuring and the cutting. And then I also got some new baseboards. So I got some baseboards, some more modern, that are a little bit higher than the baseboards that come, standard with my house. And I wanted to get new ones so that I could replace the old ones that are white and paint them black. I didn't want to try to fool with trying to paint the ones that are already there and you get paint on the carpet and everything. I still have paint on the carpet in the front half of the room. So I did that. I've got black baseboards coming up here, across, and then back. And I'm going to have to do the back half of the room. I'll have to do that later, once I start doing the, Fabricamate and stuff back there. But I did get new baseboard and then I painted it black. So this is what it looks like. And this is how it looks after I spray painted it black. I spray paint everything matte black. It's just easy. Sometimes I'll use actual paint, but so this is just a little piece that I have to put in the front of my wall. I'll probably do that after I do this video. And then for some cable management, just to make it easy, where the subwoofer cable goes, because I have a long subwoofer cable, about a 40-foot, that runs from underneath my screen to my subs, my 2 subs, JTR subs in the front, and then it goes all the way into the back. And that was something that I had to add after the fact, after I moved in. So what I did was I drilled a hole. I think this is 1 1/8. I think so. And then I just found the drill size for the grommet, little rubber grommet, put that in here. I'll probably glue that there, and that way the subwoofer cable can come out right there. So I've got black baseboards. It looks so much better. I'm so glad that I did that. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to do all of it because when I built my riser, I should have done that before I built my riser, and now I can't move my riser. So if you look down on the sides of the riser, there's a little gap between the riser and the wall. You will see white, but you won't see it unless you actually go and look for it. But the black baseboard just looks so much better. I always hated that my walls were black. The ceiling, everything is blacked out, and then you have this white baseboard going across the bottom of your floor. So now that is fixed. And then I have one of the speaker mounts for the OWX50s. I can't remember the model number. And what I did there was, let me put my gloves on. So what I did was I took a standard 2x4 and I spray painted it black. I told you I spray paint everything black. So I spray painted it black. I took measurements of the speaker mount, and then I just cut it to the size that I wanted to. And then I mounted it to the wall, and I drilled 3 holes into the wall. I believe there's a stud here.
To provide a robust mounting surface, I first installed 1/2-inch poplar blocking directly to the wall studs. This additional layer serves to stiffen the assembly, ensuring maximum pull-out strength when securing the speaker mounts to the secondary 2x4. I used a secondary 2x4 member precisely cut to match the length of the poplar backing for a clean, uniform profile. The 2x4 was spray painted with a matte black finish to provide a consistent aesthetic that blends with the mounting hardware. To prevent the wood from splitting and ensure accurate fastener placement, I pre-drilled pilot holes using a standard twist bit. Using a 1/2-inch spade bit, I bored shallow relief holes to effectively countersink the fastener heads. This countersinking technique ensures the hardware sits below the plane of the timber, preventing any interference with the mount seating. By recessing the screws, I maintained a perfectly plumb and level surface for the final hardware attachment. The combination of the poplar shim and the 2x4 effectively distributes the shear load across the wall's framing. The result is a reinforced, multi-layered mounting block that offers significantly more stability than a standard drywall installation.
Drilled that into the wall, and then I drilled the speaker mount to the 2x4. Now I had to do this because originally I did pull my speaker out about 6 inches. And it was really janky how I had to do it. I wasn't really happy with it. I wasn't even sure if it was going to be sturdy enough. But I pulled it out 6 inches, and then I forgot, oh, I need to move my projector back 6 inches. And I can't do that right now. So I had to move the projector screen back, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm not going to worry about trying to, lose 6 inches into my room. I mean, I have the space, but the front row is pretty close. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it as is. But that meant that I had to make my left and right speakers outside. I wanted to try to get everything in behind my screen, my acoustically transparent screen. But that's just not possible. My room is only 10 feet wide. So, we all have constraints, and we all have to make sacrifices in our theater, and that's one of them. But it's not that big of a deal because my monitor speakers that are on stands are basically in the exact same spot anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. The advantage is I am able to move my speakers up a little bit higher to where they should be, at least for the LCR. And you are able to swivel these. Once I get it mounted, I will be able to swivel the speaker back and forth. So I took measurements. I should be good. I wanted to have it on the front wall, but the speakers are so wide, it was coming like right into the border, and it may have come into the screen. And I said, I'm not even going to risk mounting it and then have to pull it off. So I just mounted it over, took some measurements, mounted it there. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So right side, right now this is my right side, but it's going to be the right side. And then I'll mount the 2 speakers outside of the screen, and then I'll have the center channel obviously behind the screen like it is now. So yeah, I've got the baseboards, or at least one side of the baseboards. I've got half of the baseboards on the front wall. I'm finished with the baseboards on this wall. I've got most of the track system already on the wall over here. I still have to do that side. And actually, I still have to do a lot on that side. I have to do some stuff with my window, take some more stuff down, take the curtains down, get everything prepped for that, make everything flush where the window is. Because right now I just have some acoustic material in the window, and then I have it sealed up. And I basically did that for my neighbor because he said before, you know, he could hear, not only could he feel the bass, but also he said that he could hear, because my window is close to his bedroom window, I guess. So I closed it off. Once I get the acoustic treatment up, I don't think he can hear out of the windows right now, but once I get the acoustic treatment up, you won't be able to hear anything inside or outside probably, other than the bass. I can't do anything about the bass. He's just gonna have to deal with it until he finishes moving. But yeah, that's the biggest update. So the only issue that I'm trying to work out is outlets and stuff like this. So I'm probably just gonna cover this up because this is a smart light or smart switch that I installed a couple years ago. I don't ever access this. In fact, it was covered up before with an acoustic panel. I don't ever access this. I can access it through HomeKit, through my phone, over the network, so I will never ever have to touch this. So I'm probably just going to cover it up since it's a smart switch. However, the other switches like outlets, and I have a couple wall plates where I have, you know, where my speakers are, with the speaker terminals. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. I have watched a couple videos on Fabricame's channel that tell you how to do that, but I want to make sure that I have it right first before I start putting in the, you know, the acoustic foam and everything, and then putting the fabric over that. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I'm super excited. Oh, I did want to talk about something else really quick. So front wall. So I don't know if you can see it. I think you can see part of it here. So because my room is not that wide, it's 10 feet wide, and I only have, that's maybe what, like less than a foot on each side from the screen, from the edge of the screen to the wall. I didn't want to have to try to fit the Fabricamate. You know, that was going to be a really small, tight space. I could do it, but I was like, I just don't want to waste that much, you know, track system on that little space. So what I decided to do was utilize the rest of these tone-in acoustic panels that I have. So again, I spray painted them black, and I just decided on the side of the screen, on both sides, I'm just going to go all the way down, mirror what I did with speakers, what I did with my surround speakers, and I'm just going to go all the way down until I hit the bottom of this track. And it'll actually give me some acoustic properties, you know, to break up the sound a little bit. So with the Fabricamate, you know, it's going to be acoustic, 1 inch thick acoustic on the wall. And you don't want your whole room to just be acoustic material. You want some dispersion. Now, obviously this isn't dispersion, but it is going to break up the sound because you have some hard flat surfaces, and then you've got the acoustic material in between here. So that should balance out pretty well. But yeah, so this will go basically like that all the way down. So I'm gonna do it all the way down until I get right here, and then it'll stop. So I've already got some up there. I'm gonna have to remove that once I put the track in. I just have it right there because there's a bunch of holes back there, and I don't want to be looking at a bunch of holes because I'm still kind of using my theater while I'm doing this. Haven't been using it very much. I've been spending most of my time in here just working and, you know, trying to do this myself because it is a DIY project, and this is the first time I've done anything like this. It's a learning experience. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's the most updates I've had so far, or the most updated information I have for you. I thought about maybe doing some type of lighting maybe up here, you know, when I'm not watching TV. But I don't know if I want to invest that much money for lights that I'm probably not going to use, because they're only going to be on when I'm not using the theater. And then when I'm not in the theater, you know, I mean, I do have the lights for my surrounds on all the time, so that when you come in, it has this little ambiance and I can kind of see a little bit. And then obviously, you know, if I'm working in here doing something, I can turn the lights on full blast. But yeah, that's the latest update. It is coming along. I am super excited. I can't wait to get it finished and show you guys what it looks like. Obviously, I'm only doing the front half because of funds. And then, you know, I've got a lot of cosmetic and aesthetic stuff to do in the back. I do want to mount my speakers. I am going to mount the speakers temporarily, but I do want to build something to where kind of like another false wall in the back, at least in the back corner. And then I'm probably going to utilize the window on the other side and build something out of there so that I can have, you know, I can put the Krix speakers in there. But when I have my personal speakers, because right now they're on stands and they're kind of low, they're not at the same height as the front speakers. I want everything to kind of just be similar, you know, across the board. Obviously the surround speakers are going to be a little bit higher because I have stadium seating, but I do want to raise the speakers. And then obviously, if, you know, when I'm not reviewing speakers and I have my personal speakers, I can put that, still have that speaker there. Now I won't have to use stands. I'm trying to get away from using any stands in my theater at all. I want everything either in the wall or on the wall, off the floor, just to give me more floor space. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I know this isn't very exciting videos, but I did say that I was going to try to keep you guys updated, and that's what I've been doing. So, you know, the next update, I don't know what that's going to be, but hopefully it'll be closer to being finished and I can show you guys everything that I've done. I'm super excited. It's going to look really cool. It's going to sound even better than it sounds now. You know, I hooked up the surround speakers, or I moved the surround speakers from that I had on the wall into those boxes, and it sounds infinitely better. I haven't even run calibration yet. I just put them there and turned them on. Made a huge difference. I did not realize what I was missing out on. It sounded good before, but now it just sounds even more cohesive, being in the right spot, being in the second row. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this update, and I will see you in the next video.